Hi. Don't do that. We have dogs with us today. Lots of them.
Too many of them.
4 of them. 2 are ours. 2 are my mom's. Well,
3 are technically ours.
technically.
One of them, it's been staying at your mom's because she likes to escape.
Yes, she does. And then there's Sully.
And then there's Sully.
You're kind of a potato.
He is.
But we love you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi.
I think we're just tired today.
Oh my gosh, I'm so tired.
I think we're just like kidded out.
Yeah, I think today I'm kidded out. I'm also just like, I think I'm emotionally like, I feel very emotionally unavailable today. This past week, I had a coworker who had a very, very big loss in his life. And I don't know, ever since then, it just feels very heavy and like a lot. And,
Yeah.
you know, it is what it is. And life carries on. And it's just weird. This has been a long week.
Yeah.
And I think now it's like, okay, we have to do this. We should do this podcast thing. Like, let's just go for it. Like, all right, let's do it now before we collapse.
Right. Well, and we've been but we've talked about recording the last couple episodes.
Yeah.
And then we just forget.
Yeah.
Because I think the last time we were going to do it, you had a day off and then it was like, let's do it tomorrow. And then we never even talked about it the next day. And
Yeah. Hey, dogs. Hey, dogs. Hey, dogs. All their mouths just go together. Like, how do they? That's just fun for them. It's literally just like, nobody's even fighting over anything. They're just mouthing.
Yep. Now kiss.
They are really cute.
They are cute. They're just a
Busters.
lot. It's just a lot to have in like Sully is staying for a week.
Yeah.
And it's
Hey,
not like they're.
no, thank you.
It's not
No,
that they're
thank
like
you.
a person. It's not like they're a person, you know.
No, it's not. It's okay. I'm not going to throw that for you right now, babe. And you do need to exit the building. Thank you.
It's like kids, like they know when you're trying to like do something else, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, all the attention's not on me." And like, I get that you're just a dog and you don't know, like, and cameras and lights, like.
Yeah, like they don't know any different. And even if even with like podcast stuff, of like if noises pick up, I could give 2 craps. I'm to the point where I'm just like, it's fine. Hey, ma'am, I do need you off of my own personal space though. No, thank you. No, thank you.
My tired is different than your tired, where now I'm like, all right, like now that we said we're going to do this thing, where do we throw these dogs? Do we throw them in the cages? You know,
No.
just to get them out of the way.
It's fine.
You know, I'm easily distracted.
I am too. It'll be it'll be fine though. Once we just keep talking and start talking and like get into things, they'll chill out. They'll be fine.
Didn't we throw out like a podcast thing of like, is there like questions that anybody wants to answer?
I did not do it.
Cool.
Sorry.
I thought we had a while back.
That was too long ago to remember.
Send in your questions, comment, like, subscribe.
Do whatever you
I wanna hear
want.
from you. Don't do whatever you want. I'm telling you right now. Like, comment, subscribe.
It's the emotional unavailability
You're
version
unavailable.
of
I'm trying to make money off this.
me. Jake's over here like, subscribe. I'm like, do whatever feels right.
Feel it out. It's like that. Oh, that's one of those things that like, it's like I understand like that sentiment of like just feel it out, or like the Holy Spirit, blah blah blah, and I'm like, yes, but also this.
But also do it.
I feel the same.
Fine, do it.
So we've had one major life change.
Yeah, we have. Go ahead.
I officially quit my other full-time job, and I get to do fun photo, video, graphic design stuff full-time
Social media
now.
stuff.
Social media is mostly what I love. But
Yeah, so that's super exciting.
It's a big step.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't I don't feel like stressed about it. I think some of my
don't
annoying
either.
check-ins with you is that it's you saying yes is like the complete opposite of what you're normally like. Mm-hmm. And so I'm
The blind yes, almost.
Yeah,
It doesn't
or
feel like a blind
or I'm
yes
like,
to me,
I don't know. I think like in our relationship, like I'm probably more of the dreamer type person, and you're
Yes.
probably more of the implementer.
And like
so-
the realist.
Yeah. and
Of
so-
like, if you dream something that feels unattainable
Yeah.
in the moment, I'll be like, sir,
Right.
reel it in a little.
And so then I think we kind of threw the idea out there, and I think you had kind of an instantaneous yes.
Yeah, I was just everything added up with it. I'm like, yeah, that just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Quit your job. Go
Yeah.
for it.
So I think I kept checking in, like, are you sure? Are you sure this is what we should do with our life now?
Yeah.
And here we are.
It just felt right. And yeah, this was the first week of you doing that. And
Yeah, and the week's been
been fine.
fine. I think for me, I'm just like trying to lean into here's the things I don't know, and here's what I need to know, and start to like progress in. And so I don't want to, I hate when people throw like, I'm going to do this, out there. I think I'm just trying to lean back into like, I don't know, like my own cave type thing. Where I feel like if I'm like in like my own like cave zone, like don't say anything, just do things. Like that is,
I don't know what that means entirely. Cave zone?
yeah, it's like for me, like I think about like 2020. I think about like, yeah.
Gross.
I just think about like making progress. A lot of it was like I have to kind of figure it out and journey on my own with it. And yeah, we're together in all of this, but there's just a lot of things that I don't know that I need to know that probably you're even better at than I am currently. But I need to figure more out. That could be like, how to get more clients, how to budget better, like all this.
I have ideas on how to budget better.
Yeah, I know you do.
Want me to give you a little tip?
Go ahead.
Want me to give you a little tip? Don't spend $300 at Target on a whim.
Yep.
YOLO is over.
Yeah. Or my life will be over.
Or your life, I will end you.
Yeah. Again, dreamer, implementer. But yeah, I think it'll be good.
Yeah.
And like I said, like cave, it's not about like being entirely isolated, but it is like to me, I'm like, I remember the thing I did like about 2020 is that like everybody had their own things, and so it was a little bit easier just to like do things, and then when you showed up, you were different. Mm-hmm. And I think that's good to some extent.
Sure.
Because I think you need people and you need relationships, but you are the person who has to, one, maintain them, but also maintain some form of and interdependence. Mm-hmm. And that is what we're going to talk about today.
It's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
Today when you talked about, what should the topic be of our conversation? Mm-hmm. And I think you had said, like, embracing singleness within marriage. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, let me just add a caveat to that.
Right.
Like, not singleness in the sense of, like, relational singleness, but, like, singleness in the terms of, like, just being an independent individual.
Yep.
Of, like, yes, we are married. Yes, the two have become one, blah, blah, blah.
All those
However, I am still my own person with my own opinions and my own feelings and my own experiences, and so are you.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is like, it's important on how we bring our two very, very different individual selves together, but also how we can just like encourage each other to like embrace our individualistic ways and characteristics and stuff, and like to be okay with being our own selves. Like, I think there's a lot of things that we don't necessarily, well, I shouldn't say a lot of things, but there's some things that we don't necessarily like see eye to eye on or like agree on or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, how can we just be
how do we come together on when we're
Yeah, like how can we be
disagree.
okay with that to a certain extent while also not like shitting on the other person?
Right. I think like for me, what inspired, like even kind of bringing up the topic was, it was in a different podcast. I had just seen the clip on a reel, but it was Danny Silk, and he had said that God cares more about you than he does your marriage. And in Christian culture, and for me, I grew up in that culture, so like it is like deeply ingrained into me, and like it is like the goal. Like if you don't end up married,
Like
then
marriage is the goal.
right? Like then something's wrong with you. Like and like we completely skip over like even verses that are like, you know, if you're called to be single, be single.
Because that's the thing.
Right.
There are plenty of people who are called to be single.
Yep.
And like,
and they probably know that,
Yeah.
but like our church culture and even outside world culture, like it is about connection and it is about finding your people and maybe, you know, a person that is like your ride or die. But to me, when I heard that, I was like, oh, what he's really saying in this is God cares about the state of one individual person's heart, their soul, their mind, like every element of them.
yeah,
And he cares about that more than the institution of marriage.
sure.
Like, and I get it. Like, we're the bride of Christ. So
Yeah,
somebody
but,
might be
like-
like, okay, well, that's also like the goal. The goal
Like
in
two
marriage.
things can be true at the same time. I think that even just that sentiment of like God cares about your individualistic heart and your salvation and your relationship with him more than like your marriage. Like that doesn't mean God doesn't care about your marriage.
Yeah.
Like it's not what that means at all. But if there's something very deeply wrong happening within your marriage
Yeah.
that is contributing to a brokenness within two individual people, God cares about that. Like let's heal that first, because
Yep.
you can't heal a marriage or work on a marriage or improve a marriage if there's two very broken people who are just continuing
Yeah.
brokenness and continuing any
Yeah.
kind of like unhealthy cycles of pain, slightly healing, offense, pain, slightly healing,
Yeah.
offense, you know, just like that keep
There's
the
a
cycle.
cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and I think God cares a lot more about like working on an individual prior
Yeah.
to helping the marriage as a
Yeah.
whole.
It's like you know, and when we did marriage counseling, it's like we both have our individual gardens and we have a shared space that is also
Yeah.
garden. And so to me, I'm like, that is a really amazing example of a relationship of, okay, like you two have your own hearts to tend to. You have your own likes, your dislikes, your own friends. You know, you have this autonomy away from each other, but together we have this thing that we're working on that is your relationship, your marriage. And I think for me, the way that I started doing our marriage in the beginning was if we were in a fight and we had to take space from each other, it's like, all right, I have to chase this person down because I have to, you know, it's like you have to show like I'm in this. I'm committed
Yes, and
to
I'm
this.
over here like
Yeah,
running away, like, sir, leave me be. I
Yes.
need to like process this crap.
Yep.
And yeah,
But I also think that like when I'm a part of like some different like groups on like mostly Facebook that like I subscribed to years ago for like, you know, that some of them are dad groups, some of them are husband groups. And one of the things that I see in those husband groups is how many people agree with like never separating even rooms. Like, let's say they're like they'll give a caveat, and this is something that like we'll relate to from our experience of like me as the husband, I like get caught having an affair of any sort, emotional, whatever, and she doesn't want to be around him, and so then they're like, I'm sleeping on the couch, I'm separating.
Yeah.
And people will comment and be like, that's such a bad idea.
that
Right.
kind of stuff is so unhealthy to me. Not the I'm sleeping on the couch. Like yeah, homegirl, sleep on that couch. Why the hell are you still in the same house? I'd be
Right.
out being like,
Well, and
I'm gonna get a
saying, like,
hotel for the night.
well, it's
See you
like,
later.
right? And it's like that person, that wife can do that, but
Yeah.
like even then, it's like he violated the terms and conditions.
Yeah, and
So
now
it's like
she's
he
being
should-
villainized for
Right, wanting
for
the
holding a
space.
boundary and needing
Yep.
space.
So she's wanting the space,
which is not
And then
fair.
like another thing that I'll see often is like, they'll have disagreements, and like it's just a constant disagreement, and it'll be like, we argued till 6 a.m. People are like, good job. Like,
Yeah.
You know, the Bible says, don't let the sun go down on your anger. And
That
I'm
is
just like,
no.
I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, and that was a way that I had operated.
See, because to me,
that was-
even I'm having like this little tiny epiphany in this moment. Like, the literal sun did go down on their anger though, because they were still feuding and
Yep.
fighting all night long.
Yep.
Instead of giving each other what they probably needed,
Yeah. Which
which
is
was
time and
space
space.
and time.
Yep.
And giving each other space and time does not equate to, wow, you went to bed angry.
Yeah, or-
you let the sun go down on your anger and all that crap. It's like, no, I needed a minute to actually be a human
Yeah.
and to go through the feelings that came with this argument, this
Yeah.
blow up, this potential affair thing that like
Whatever.
a big thing, whatever it is, big or small. Like, we're only human. We will not always be able to figure out our issues
Yep.
in an evening. If that was the
Yes.
case, nobody would ever get divorced.
Yeah.
Ever.
Exactly.
Sorry, let the sun go down on, like, how about we fizzle this out a little
Right.
bit and press
But
pause?
it's also like you're not at your best when you are tired. Like everybody
Right.
is different. Like, and I think that
and
like
then mixing
when we're,
tired with anger, it's
Yeah.
just even more.
and what it feels like to me is like we're trying to come up with a solution. We're just being solution based, and
You might
even
not
a
get
lot of
one,
times
dude.
like how I feel like I was, and maybe it's just my perception of how I feel like a lot of other men are, is that if they're a part of the problem and they're just trying to be solutions based, they're still living in a victim mentality, because they're going to be like, well, this is exactly what I need, or this is what I needed to hear, and still no change happens from it. They came up with a solution, but they never gave space and time. They never really got to the root of something.
Well, that's the thing. When you're seeking some kind of comfort within a very specified time frame for the
Yeah.
sake of having it being done in a specific time frame, you don't actually value the solution.
No.
You don't actually value
No.
what's going on with the other person. You literally are just trying to find a way to sweep it away as quickly as possible.
Yep.
Because like with the example of an affair, nobody's going to solve that in an evening.
No.
Nobody's going to solve that in a week.
No.
Or probably a month.
Or most likely not even
Or
a year.
maybe ever, depending on the situation, depending on the people. Like, I think the person who's so eager to get to the solution as quick as possible has an issue with intimacy.
Yep.
Because they're not willing to be uncomfortable with a person in front of them,
Yep.
whether they're the ones who caused pain or vice versa. And frankly, that's just not okay. Like, oh, excuse me, buddy. We have to value connection with one another more than our own comfortability.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means being on silent mode with each other for a few days.
Yeah.
Having that separation a little bit, sleeping in a different bed, needing to press pause on our personal relationship as two, so that
Yeah.
as an individual, we can work towards healing in our own specified way that we need.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing in relationships. And in my mind, I think every person who reads the Bible takes things out of context, which
Sure.
I think to some extent is true. But when
Like
it
at
comes-
one point in time, at least.
Yeah, to some point in time, you know. But I think that when we take scripture and we try to apply it to a utter, like a complete disconnection in the relationship that's going on, silently behind the scenes. Because even though you could be having a disagreement with a spouse, you still have your own opinion about it.
Yeah.
If you don't voice it, and if you don't have good, healthy conflict behind it, you probably will ignore that. So then there's a disconnection behind the scenes, which then in turn, I think, turns one of the parties into the victimizer, typically. And I don't want to gender role that, because everything can be different, typically men. Just joking.
No, you're not.
But they end up being a victimizer who is trying to be a victim in all of it. And they are looking for the other person to be the solution. They're looking for the other person. They're waiting for them to say something that's going to heal them. They're going to look for somebody to be there. You know, if I just am in proximity with this person to, you know, more, like for some people, they're like, oh, like I feel disconnected because maybe we don't have enough sex.
Which even that,
You know,
like
like
that in itself is the definition of codependency, though.
Right.
It's like when you seek solutions from a person, when you're seeking a certain validation or feeling from a person of like, I'm feeling lack in our marriage, and it's because you don't have sex with me enough. Or I feel lack in us because you're not, you aren't giving me XYZ. Like, if you catch yourself saying things like that in the realms of your relationships, whether it's friendships, boyfriend, girlfriend, marriage, whatever, I strongly encourage anybody to like take a look within. You cannot put those expectations on another person because you will be disappointed. Because that person is not Jesus. That person will fail you, whether they want to or not. And then if they don't fail you at first, they might, depending on their own walk, carry that expectations on themselves of like, I have to be their everything. I have to carry this load for them. If I don't, they will start drinking again. They will verbally abuse me again. They might have an affair again, et cetera, et cetera. And you start taking ownership of the other person's faults. That's manipulation, that's codependency. And frankly, there's no room in that in a healthy relationship.
I was going to say, I can't remember what the scripture reference is, but there's a Bible verse that says, bear another one's burdens. And so I think a lot of times we subconsciously remember scriptures. And even though it's not like, you know, chapter and verse, I'm sure some people use chapter and verse. And to me, when we're using scripture as abuse, that is the Bible.
Like as a little,
is the Bible without God at all.
If you're ever weaponizing anything or pushing somebody into a corner to act a certain way that you want them to act, or quote unquote need them to act in order to benefit from it, and you're using biblical context to do that, you are the problem. You are the enemy, and you're not a safe person. And that's not.
I would say it's utterly demonic.
It is to a certain extent, and honestly, I think
and twisting it.
We had a moment together, the bathroom moment in our marriage when shit hit the fan and it got really bad. And I remember being in the bathroom. We had just
had a huge fight.
We had a huge fight, and it was awful, and I was trying to separate myself. And we were in the bathroom, and you were just pounding on the door. I'm just like, leave me alone. Give me a minute. Pounding on the door. I'm like on the floor crying, and I'm like starting to feel scared because I'm just like, this dude will not, like, he will not just back off, and I just need him to back off. Like, let me grieve in this moment. Let me feel this moment. And I remember opening the door, and I don't even know everything that I said because it felt like I felt like Holy Spirit was like guiding me through that moment because it was just like I was out of my own sense. But I remember something that I said to you though was just that, like, with the way that you were choosing to act and to treat me and to validate yourself in your actions, like, God must be so disappointed in you. And that, I think, was the biggest disappointment for me, was that, like, you were disappointing God so much, and that like he must just be really sad for you. And I think in moments like this, for other people who do use biblical context and God as a way of getting what they want out of a relationship or manipulating their spouse or significant other, like, God is so disappointed at you for that. And that's not, I don't want that to be a statement that carries like shame of like, you know, you should feel like crap. You should, like, none of that. But just, it's more of like you need to open your eyes to the real, like, the reality of what's going on. This isn't God's best for you.
No.
This isn't what God wants for you. And it should not be seen as a moment of like, carry this shame with you for the rest of your life, and more of like it's time to break free from that disgusting, toxic, self-deprecating cycle and become the person that God actually created you to be.
Yeah.
And I think once you actually like remove yourself and put yourself in like God's position, looking down on his child, acting this way, treating other people this way, would you be delighted if you were that dad?
Oh, no.
Exactly.
No. And I think a lot of what we see in what is secular and Christian culture, which this is a sad thing to even say, is that I don't think a lot of people are experiencing love the way that it was intended to.
Oh, sure.
Because they're only taking it piece by piece. And what I mean that is, if we look at it's like we have the fruit of the Spirit, and we also have a definition of love. So it's like the fruit of the Spirit is not one, it's all of those things. So it's love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, self-control. It's all of those things.
Yeah.
And people like to say, well, if I have peace, I have a fruit of the Spirit. But they
Which
can
is
have
great.
none of the other things, but they have
Sure.
peace. And I'm going, no, it's saying the fruit of the Spirit. It's saying when you have the Spirit, this is the byproduct.
Yeah.
And then when we look at love, love is patient, love is kind.
Yeah.
Love believes
Like you have to have
things.
all of those things in order to have the full fruit.
Right. And anytime we're acting outside of love, it is not going to feel like love. It's not going to taste like love.
No.
And I feel like we've desensitized ourselves because we've taken love apart in so many different ways to be like, okay, well, like my heart says I love you, but I also love all of these other things. And we
Yeah.
throw them all into a broad category of like, okay, like these are people I love. Here's people I would die for. And then here's people that I love that I want to be connected to in a deeper way.
Maybe wouldn't die for.
Yeah. maybe want to die for, that could be a husband, could be a spouse. But it's like there's a disconnection where like, and what I feel like in a lot of relationships, again, typically men, they talk about being like, this person is my best friend. The person that I married is my best friend. But I just can't talk to them. I can't.
Doesn't
XYZ.
sound like
I
that
don't
much
feel
of a
safe.
best friend.
Right. And so
Or I just can't be vulnerable with them. I just can't open up with them.
Like I can't bare my neck to them and I think part of it is just unhealthy, masculine Christian archetypes that I just don't think are biblical or godly. Sure. But when we grow up and we're like, all right, like a man provides, he does this, he does that. We never talk about vulnerability. We never talk about honesty. We never talk about. We'll say like have a devotional, have a prayer life, but even then with other men, it's pathetic.
Yeah.
Like
sure.
The hard thing with other men is staying in constant relationship with each other, because if you have constant relationship with another, even just one healthy man, they will kill you for doing some of the things that you're doing. And it is what I think a lot of men need. It's not tough love, but it's when you have somebody who
it's honest
can
love.
have honesty that's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like I think sometimes men just need a shell shock of like, what are you thinking? Why are you doing this? Why are you talking to her like that? I've sat with so many different friends who will tell me something, and I'm just like, you understand that like you're the problem. Like
right.
First and
the
foremost,
only
get to
reason
that
why
part.
You are in that position to say some of those honest things to others is because you've had honest people say those things to you.
Oh, totally.
And like you've had to learn through obviously like getting healing from the Lord first and foremost, but like through those really close, healthy relationships with other men, of calling you out and being like, why are you talking to her like this? Like what you just said.
Yep.
And now it's like, okay, once you've gotten through your own healing journey and like worked through your own trauma that has like brought on like you have more context of like why you're so triggered at certain things.
Yeah.
You're here. You're on the other side of things.
Yep.
You have a much healthier marriage. You're a much healthier person, and now you can see some of those like pain points in other people. I don't want to get too far away from the subject because I know
No.
we're sleepy,
No.
and I think we ramble when we're sleepy.
No, we can't. But I think the context of like why I think the definition, or like when you're in a relationship, it is so hard to see you when you're so focused on another person.
Or like as the
'cause that's
whole.
codependency.
Yeah.
That's like we look at a marriage and we want to say, this person hurt me. Great. Love is patient, love is kind. Love believes all things. The fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience. We're looking at that person and we're going, I'm hurt, rightfully so to some extent, because your experience is your experience. However, it's not their responsibility
To fix it.
at all. And I think that's why we do have relationships to kind of coax us out of that. But in the marriage context, you are two separate people that are deciding to metaphorically become one individual.
Yeah,
Like,
which is hard.
It is hard.
Yeah, having two different lifestyles, childhoods, everything
Yep.
be brought together, and then also to be. I do think there's like this weird like. I don't think anybody ever goes into marriage being like, this is going to be the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. And I also don't think that anybody gives that kind of advice as like, this is going to be so easy for you, don't worry.
No.
But I do think there's like a weird oversimplification, even with just like that phrase of like, the two have become one.
Yes.
It's like, oh, well, that was easy.
Yeah. Yep.
It's like, hell no, that's not easy. Like,
we
no.
did it. We made it.
Like, quote unquote,
you
the two have become one, but like, you will have to wake up and die to yourself every single day in order to maintain that oneness with one
Right.
another. And that's good. Like, that's okay.
Yep.
But at the same time, like, you're still bringing your own individual oneness
Yeah.
to the table to match with their individual oneness.
Yeah, and I think like you shouldn't date and you shouldn't get married if you're not ready to be different.
And
you don't think about that.
And I'm going to piggyback on that too. Think of that from your own perspective.
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay with evolving and growing and changing over time. However, never go into a relationship, a marriage, any kind of romantic anything with any other person with the expectation that you're going to change them.
Yes.
And that they will be better for you.
I think that's the difference, though, is like you're not going to, and you have if somebody gives you permission to, speak into their life, great. They still
Wonderful.
have an individual choice to take your advice, your opinion,
Sure.
whatever. But I think when I say, like, don't go into it unless you want to be changed, I mean it in the sense of, when you get married, you are going to be confronted with all of your shortcomings,
Yeah.
all of your, as an individual, as the person who can self-manage, people don't see the crappy stuff that you do, or
No.
how when you come home you're lazy, or you don't have to pick up
No.
after yourself for this, or on Tuesdays I do the dishes because there's only one of me, but now that there's two of me, there's more dishes all the time. Like, there's little things, but even beyond that, it's like, all right, like, you are giving up some of your free time to connect.
Yeah.
And maybe you are more independent, and then all of a sudden you're with a person and they want more of your time. Like, that's going to feel like a strain. And
Sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes
Right.
it can.
But
Sometimes
this
it comes
is-
more naturally, but yes.
I'm trying to.
I know what you're saying.
I'm being as inclusive as I can be
Yes.
to different relationships, but
I know.
you're faced with you're a problematic person. Period. Like,
Who?
Everybody.
Everybody's problematic.
Yeah.
Everybody.
I said this the other day. I don't care if anybody
I
gets
don't know if I
offended
agree
at this.
with that, but that's okay.
I said this. Every person is an inconvenience. I think
that's such a
Stop
glass
it.
half
It's
empty
not.
statement.
No, it's not. This is why I think when I say it, like,
I think there's a different
you hear
word
it so
that we could
differently.
use, an
You hear it so
inconvenience.
differently. In my mind, when I hear you're an inconvenience, I'm thinking of it as like, yeah, like when you are interrupting somebody else's day. Like, that's an inconvenience, but it can be a positive thing.
See,
Or
inconvenient doesn't sound
I need
positive.
getting help from a counselor or a therapist. You're going to them with a problem. They don't want or need your problems, but
They do too. They get paid for that.
I get there's an exchange of currency. I get it. If I call up a friend, if I'm having a hard day, if I am making a drastic life change, like leaving my job that I go to every single day, consistent money, good insurance, that's an inconvenience for me to make this type of life change. But it can be a good thing. And I think it's like we look at being an inconvenience as going, oh, I'm just going to like ruin somebody's day by my existence. And I'm like, no, sometimes the best things are being interrupted. Sometimes the best conversations you have just randomly happen.
See,
or
but
some
I
of the
wish,
best
why can't we
encounters.
call
You've
it like a
had it.
happy inconvenience?
You've had whatever. But like, have you ever just ran into like a friend like out in the wild and you just have a even 10-minute
Yeah,
conversation?
I wouldn't call that an inconvenience.
But that's the thing is we don't see it as that. But you could be on your way to
You
do
do.
something else. I'm just saying. I think we view our life in a way that like is almost like you should, and that to me is them taking up space. Of yes, I am an inconvenience, but I'm worth the time.
Well, I'm going to let everybody know right now, I'm not an inconvenience. I am worth your time, and I'm a lovely encounter.
I get
Never
it.
an
You are
inconvenience.
a drama queen.
You're not wrong.
Yeah. But I to me, like that is part of life though. And like that is what being in a marriage is. That's what being in a relationship is that
Sure.
at times you are going to inconvenience the other person.
Yes,
But
that's
that
true.
inconvenience is meant to make you
More connected and stronger.
more connected, ultimately more like Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
That should be the ultimate goal. But you don't know those things until you're faced with being an inconvenience.
Also, when you first brought up this subject of like embracing singleness within marriage and like in embracing your own oneness in marriage, in my mind I'm like, yeah, let's talk about like alone nights. Like
No, we can get to that, but like that, they're broad. You have to have like a broader context because
Sure.
like this isn't 10 tips for a Tuesday night.
No.
But this is like if we bring a context to like a relationship of like okay, like codependency. Like some people might hear that and think to themselves like, I'm not codependent, but then find out like, oh, I might say something that on the lines of somebody who's codependent, or maybe by the Bible that I believe that isn't God's word, but just opinion word. Maybe I am a little meaner, and I'm using script like context matters for
Sure.
this, and so yeah. It might be like, yeah, like how do we do self-care? We'll get to that in a minute.
Sure, we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah. But I think ultimately it really does start with that separation of I am an individual and you're an individual.
We have different needs.
Yeah. I've said it before. It's really interesting sometimes where you and I, like something will be happening in our life or like, maybe we'll just be having a conversation one day and I'll say like, oh, I was thinking about this. And then you'll be like, no way, me too. Like we'll both be on like the same
Page or like wavelength or something.
whatever. But we never talked about it prior. We weren't like, hey, like I'm thinking about XYZ. We're like, can you also think about this?
Sure.
It's just this random like, oh, today, or like this thing keeps coming up.
Yes,
Oh,
I know what you're talking about.
Like we'll have that, but I think the reason we have that is because we have a separation with ourselves to be connected to God, and it looks different for us, and it has different times for us, but we prioritize that separately because we both have to have an individual relationship with Jesus first and foremost.
Agreed.
What does that look like for you?
What do you mean?
What does your, like if I was to say, hey, what does a daily walk with Jesus look like for Ashley? How would you describe it? What are the things that are like your non-negotiables?
I honestly think it changes daily. Like I don't have, I know some people are like, I wake up first thing in the morning and I read my devotions or I read my Bible or I have 10 minutes of prayer time or whatever. I don't have anything consistent, and low-key maybe I should, but I don't. And I think that's fine. And I think that low key works with like, I think it works with God's schedule. And I think it works with my ADHD brain of just like little moments where I need Jesus or I'm thinking about something and like, I don't know. I feel like I have my little moments of prayer time throughout the day, my little Holy Spirit moments throughout the day. Sometimes that's through worship music. Sometimes that's just through like working at my job and like taking a few minutes at my desk and just like existing with the Lord and being like, what do you have for me today? What do you like? Sometimes I'll get it from, like I'll have little moments with him depending on conversations I'm having with other people.
Yeah.
Like certain conversations that I have with people will spark like a topic or like I'll hang on to like a phrase or something that's said and like for some reason like it gets highlighted for me.
Yeah.
And I'll bounce back to the Lord. I'm just like, what is on that? Like, why is that significant? Why does that matter? Is it just me thinking that's a fun thing, or is like, do you have something on that for me? And just like listening to what he has, and I think that is something that changes daily. It rarely ever looks the same. And I don't know, I'm a huge like signs person too, where I don't get like signs from the Lord on a daily basis. That's just kind of like one of those things that comes
and goes.
But yeah, like if I've been dreaming about, I don't know, I'll just make something up. Like I've been dreaming about cows and like living on a dairy farm or something. I don't know, like maybe something will come to me, and then I'll all of a sudden either be like hyper aware or like I'll notice like, oh, there's a dairy farm billboard that is going on. Hi, Clem. Our daughter's up from rest time.
Mommy and Daddy are doing our podcast.
You can come hang if you want to, but you have to be quiet, okay?
Yeah. You can
Deal?
chime in if we ask you questions.
Just because we have like little microphones on and stuff, and Mommy and Daddy are having a conversation. You are welcome to join and sit if you want to sit and hang out with us.
Yep.
And yeah, if you have any little tidbits too, like any little things you want to say, you can.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll let you know when you can talk.
Yes.
Just so then you can be heard.
So, but yeah, like
So
I'll
it changes every day.
It changes every day.
You don't have anything that you do that's consistent.
No, I really don't.
I feel like there's going to be like a person out there that like
who's like, that's ungodly.
There is going to be somebody who's like naughty, don't do
probably,
that, you know?
probably.
And I think like why I ask is like I God speaks to everybody differently.
Yeah.
I think the intentionality is what we're looking for.
Yes. And I will say I do need to definitely read my Bible more. But again, that just comes with like it's a different thing every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes that also does look like reading my Bible. Sometimes it doesn't. It just depends on the thing.
For me, like reading my Bible every day is like, it's simple. It's something that like, I either have it on my phone or I do have my physical version of it. But like getting a little bit in the Word helps a lot. But sometimes what I find is like my life will start to have like a theme. And so then I'll kind of just start to go around like that theme of like what's happening. Not to just like make it about a theme, but I'm like, all right, if I'm moving into a different season or a different time or what are these themes, like I want to know a little bit more about that to navigate my everyday a little bit better. But when it comes down to like connecting outside of just the Bible, I for sure need to just be quiet. I can't.
Yeah.
For me, it's no worship music, and it is like if you want to say something, God, you can. If you don't, like the whole purpose is to just exist.
And that's the thing too. It's like how do I phrase this? Like, I need God. Like I think we all do to certain extents. For sure, we need God.
Yeah.
But I also have like this thing where I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, I don't always need God to like swoop in and play superhero. Like I don't need him to be constantly talking to me. I don't need him to, answer every single one of my questions and bring all this clarity at all times, forever and ever. Like I'm okay with just living in the mundane with him at times, and like living in the quiet and being okay with that. And like you said, just like existing together and being together. Because that's
Yeah.
also where like true relational growth comes with the Lord, of like,
Yeah.
if you, it's like that little, there's like a little quote. It's like, if you can be in the same room and not speak to each other, like as a spouse, like, and it's not uncomfortable. It's like, you know that you've found like true comfort with that person. Same thing goes with God, I think. Like if you can sit alone with him and not be uncomfortable, like
Yeah.
that's true relational like
Yeah.
connection, I think.
I think a lot of people want something from
Or
God.
need
And I think like,
something.
I feel like needing God and needing Jesus is not because you're codependent on them. I think it's just because
No.
like that is who God is.
And that's also how like who we're designed to be too.
Yeah,
Like
I think that like needing him trumps everything else, because
Yeah.
I know that because it's God, it's always going to be healthy. It is going to be exactly what you need at the moment. But that doesn't mean that like I ignore things going on in my life, or I'm like kind of just putting like this like relational, like I'm going to be quiet with God all the time. It's
Sure.
like, no, like
no.
most times I'm
No,
like,
because you're also not quiet with your spouse all the time. That
No.
that would be weird. That's a weird thing.
Yep. Or like, it's like, sure, you can be like, I don't have anything to say right now, but I'm really enjoying our time.
Yeah.
Like, that's fine.
Who is that from? That's from the kid from
Love on the Spectrum. I don't
Spectrum.
remember his name.
I love him.
I know.
He's my favorite. He's so happy.
But there, a lot of times, like my prayer life probably looks a lot different than maybe like what you hear at like church for prayer. Like if somebody is to pray, they're asking for a lot. Most times I'm like, God, I have no idea what I'm doing.
yeah.
I have no idea, and like this is the prayer of my life. God, I don't know how to be a good husband, a good friend, a good dad. I don't know how to be a good entrepreneur, person, but you do. God, show me how to do that.
Yeah.
And I feel like even just from the ease of being like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but you do. Like it's putting so much more trust in him. And it's
Yeah.
not about like, to me, I'm like, I don't need you to provide me with like, the supernatural like restoration of a marriage. I don't need
Sure.
this supernatural, here's our finances, here's our debt. Like, yeah, I'll pray. It would be like, God, it'd be awesome if we
Yeah.
worked out debt.
Great.
But my top priority is not to just have something supernaturally be gifted to me. Yeah, getting gifted something by God speaks to your identity as a child of God.
Sure.
I want authority more than I want all that identity. Because, like,
Say that again. I don't like that.
I know.
You need authority
Saying
more
it-
than identity.
I'm
Rewind.
saying, like, when it comes down to a relationship with him, like, I would rather grow than I would just be gifted it. Like, I think some people have this really amazing gift of, like, really, like, I feel like our friend Evan, like, just has this really supernatural gift of, like, he, like, knows who he is.
Who he is, yeah.
Knows, like, he knows he's God's. He knows, like, he's confident, etc. Like, he has all of these things that I don't think are really natural for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And he does speak with authority,
Yeah.
like, in
And
that.
it
I don't
comes
want to, like,
superly-
negate that, but I'm like, you have sonship down in a supernatural way. I don't have that.
Yeah.
And it's not that I want, the hard mode all the time of life, but I know that there's a sweetness and a fondness that I can have with that.
Yeah.
And I think I would almost say that's more common for other people too, is that like we come to God with issues on an individual basis, and he is wanting you to walk with him through it. And so I find it's like I'd rather have the fondness of a struggle to walk next to God than just have the identity portion. Like, I love the identity portion, but I want to grow in that together with him.
Sure.
Because it looks different for everybody.
You can come out
I'm sure
if
it's
you
gonna.
want, babe. You want to come sit by mom?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there any clothes that I can use for
clothes?
Clothes for a game?
Like your clothing? You have clothes upstairs in your closet. Oh. Otherwise, there's some laundry in the laundry room.
Yep. I'm sure somebody hearing it will be like, identity in Christ is number one. I'm just saying, for me, like, identity just looks different
Okay.
to some extent for me, at least right now. I want to operate with authority as a son. I don't want to just sit there as a son.
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Whatever.
You say whatever.
Yeah. Well, and this is it's like, if somebody was listening to it, like, there's probably 1,000 things that I would say
Yeah,
about
you might need to
identity.
follow up on that one again after you think about it more. That's fine.
Whatever. Read your Bibles, kids.
Yeah.
So,
How much? What are we at for time?
51 minutes.
Okay. All right. Let's move on.
So, individual relationships with Jesus are a must.
Yes.
They have to happen. How do you, for yourself, friendships, how do you steward friendships? Because a lot of people in relationships have the same group of friends or groupings of friends.
Yeah, I feel like friendships. I feel like this could be a whole episode all on its own. We were talking about that a little bit today, you and I, of just like, I feel like in different phases of life, you have different kinds of friendships. Like when you're in high school, you have friendships out of convenience because like you only go to school with so many people. Like
Yeah.
pick from that closed group and go from there.
Yep.
And some of those friendships can carry on throughout adulthood and stuff. But then like you have friendships that you make like after high school to young adulthood. And then there's like, I feel like there's like, at least for us, there was like a weird window of like friends that I made through like dating and engagement and
Yep.
like more people. I'm meeting your family, I'm meeting your friends. We're all coming together. They're meeting some of my friends. And then we get married and weirdly, like some people just drop off.
Yeah.
And
Like instantly.
like almost instantly. That was definitely a thing for a while. And now it's like, I feel like I've come to this point. We've been together for about 10 years, a little over 10 years now. And I feel like I'm just coming into the season now of being like, wow, I have like my true core friendships with certain people that I know that I think I will carry on with me for the rest of my life. And I do think that it is important to like prioritize, like, yes, time with you, time with, pause.
The Mob song. She wants to listen to the Mob song.
From Beauty and the Beast. It's
yeah.
literally the Gaston song about killing the beast, which
Yeah.
is traumatic, but she loves it. Anyway, I do think it's important and vital to like prioritize friendship time with like your actual friends when you're married, and especially when you have kids. Like you need to take that time for yourself. You need to take that time to connect and relate to other people in your life that's not your husband or your children.
Yeah.
Like I just went on like a little weekend excursion with a couple of my friends to Chicago.
Yep.
And it was so lovely. And yes, I missed my children, and yes, I missed you.
Yeah.
But it was just so good for my soul to connect and like tap back into just like me as an individual, as opposed to like me as like Ashley as the mom, or Ashley as the wife, or Ashley as the, social worker or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm just who I am, exploring, enjoying life with my friends for a little bit. And I think it's important to have that.
Yeah. I think for dudes, I feel like they ignore it a lot. I try to reach out, even like sometimes I have like ideas of like, or I'll send somebody like a music festival or, something. And
Like an idea to
I'll throw
go
an
do something
idea.
together.
And I think like I don't always get a response. And I don't think it's like that I'm driven by like a response, but I feel like there's too many men that are not as relational as they should be.
Maybe.
And
Maybe you
I mean,
pick music festivals that are too far away.
it doesn't
I know, it doesn't matter. I'm just
a lot of people will even say like guys will text each other and be like, "What are you doing right now?" To me, I'm like, I think men just they can't plan effectively because they
don't
don't
do too much of a blanket statement on men. We can't keep throwing men under the bus here.
Men
aren't as much of trash.
But I also think that like their priorities, I think for valuing themselves, I think there are two ends of it, of dying to yourself and providing for your family and like being the biblical Christ-like figure in your household. I think there's that, but then there is the other side that I do think that a lot of men miss, and that's where I think like they lose some of the passion of their own life because they lack purpose, and they're like, well, I'm just doing things, even if they're doing things that they love, like they just feel isolated or alienated. And so for me, I'm trying to facilitate, like, even just like I want to do this with another person, another man, and I'm sure I could pursue it harder, but sometimes just based on like a first response that you get, you're just kind of like it's either none, or it's just like, thumbs up, minuscule, like, what's up, dude?
It didn't work. It's just it's not the live.
Yeah.
It's not the live action one.
Yeah. How about this? I'll put it on my phone, and you go do your thing. Okay. So part of me, I don't want to say I don't think it's hard. I just think it's
different.
It's different. And so for me, like, I feel like prioritizing myself looks like I spend a lot of time with myself without my kids,
which sometimes that's important too. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
always have to look like, I think most of the time when I have like my quote unquote me time, when it comes to like having separation between like you and like the girls and just needing a couple hours to myself, I don't always fill that up with connecting with other people.
Yeah.
Sometimes I literally I'm like, I need to just be alone.
Yeah.
Like, I need to go do my own thing. I need to either go for a drive, go walk around Target for a couple hours, even if I don't buy anything. Like,
Yeah.
I just need to exist.
Yep.
Sometimes it's even just like, I'm going to go upstairs and lay in bed
Yep.
and just be here. I might
Definitely,
not
like, for
sleep.
me-
I might
for me,
sleep. Who knows?
I'll do it where I'll go to the store, I'll buy the same stupid food that I like eating, and then
Your General Tso chicken and rice and
I'll do that, or
Starburst gummies.
yeah, Starbucks gummies or some sort of gummy candy, and I'll go and like sometimes I'll set out with the purpose of like, I mean, especially when I was working 2 jobs, like sometimes
Yeah.
that like I set out with the intention of like, I'll go watch a movie or I'll play video games or whatever, and then like I end up sitting there and falling asleep.
Yeah.
Just because
That's all that you
that's
can
all
do.
I could do in the
Yeah.
moment, and it's like my intention was something else. And sometimes I feel like that's what it is like I think a lot of people are burned out. So for me, I'm like, my relationships just look different, and some of them I'm excited for them to look different in this season because I think it's going to take on that look and feel.
Yeah, now that
But-
you do have more like capacity for that now.
Yeah, and I have more capacity for that now. I think for me, what I would say, if I'm craving anything in this season, is more connection with people that aren't my spouse. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like it's
And as your spouse too, like, I do think that this is, I don't want to try to like toot my own horn or anything, or toot our own horn, but like, I do think from a healthy marriage standpoint, you should be always encouraging your spouse to be themselves.
Yeah.
And to go do things for them.
Yep.
And to hang out with other people.
Yeah.
Not necessarily together, alone.
Yep.
Like, anytime I know that you're going to go hang out with a friend, I'm like,
Yep.
yes, go.
And this isn't like my ride or die person to always say, if I texted him today and be like, when's the next time we're hanging out? We'd set a date now.
Yeah.
Definitely Spencer.
Yes.
And so it's like, I do have a person that's consistent. And that's what I think for me, that like, I think you need in any sort of relationship is like, even if you have that one consistent friend, doing something with them, like he and I, like we probably on average hang out for like 6 hours. Even if we hang out once a month.
Yeah. You fit all your month's worth of hangouts in one
Something
night.
like that. But like but we laugh and we have fun, and we do kind of catch up on life a little bit. But like, even for the most part, like we're not like just catching up. We're usually just goofing off.
Sure.
And that part, I think, is what's needed. Is you need people that like you can talk with, who you can goof off with, that you can obviously I can have a serious conversation with this person.
Mm-hmm.
But again, consistency is like what you need. And I think like being alone or having your own hobbies, like we don't watch the same things. Or,
Sometimes we do, but
we do, but I'm
sometimes
saying like
don't.
we kind of have different interests.
Yes.
And prioritizing your own interests or even things together but separate. Like you've
Like
taken
if
a
you
nap
want
or
to
you've
go
read
on
a
the
book.
Switch and I'll watch a show, or
Yeah.
I'll take a nap and you'll
Yeah.
watch a show or switch it up or whatever.
Yeah, and I think that's becoming more common, or like one of the suggestions that people have of like, separate but equal. So that's what that means. It's my office quote of the day.
Sure.
But like you are both able to be together, do something. But I think prioritizing your individual likes and also
Yeah.
not dogging on the other person's likes.
Yeah.
But sometimes
no.
I see that in relationships, even like lightly, like it could be like a joke or like we went and we watched all of Bridgerton. But I can,
Which is very much a me
Right.
thing that I like.
Yep.
But like you decided to join in.
Yeah.
Too, because I think it was more so because you know that I liked it, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, maybe this can be something we can do together.
Yeah. We went and saw that one movie, that Downton Abbey movie, like a while back too.
Long time ago.
Yeah, whenever that movie came out. But like sometimes I'll pick things to do because I just want to spend time with you as my person.
Yeah.
Not so much that I want to dog on your thing. And like you're so much more into it than I am or
Yes.
I ever would be.
Yes,
And,
fairly so. Why do you have to pick the biggest toy? What even is this? Is this just like a Christmas tree?
Yeah, it's from your mom.
This is gross. Hold on. Hey, Pep. Hey. Loosen your mouth. Thank you. Loosen your mouth. Stop. It's a Christmas. Like, what is this?
Yeah. Isn't that
We're going to
nuts?
put that over there.
But I think like it is really important to like understand that like you are going to have different interests.
Yeah.
And that sometimes you're going to indulge the other person with those interests.
And this is like slightly, it's related, but also unrelated kind of. Girls, especially like younger women who are in relationships with dudes or getting close to like marriage time, whatever. I do think there are some guys who can be very lazy, waste their days away, crappy job or no job,
Yeah.
messy house, cannot take care of themselves, but they spend 12 hours a day playing video games. Hey, excuse me, no thanks. Spending 12 hours a day playing video games. I don't think that's the greatest thing. But I also don't think there's anything wrong with men who play video games. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's so many women who are like the video game
They equate it to
playing guy.
laziness.
They equate it to he's toxic, he's lazy, he's whatever. And it's like, ma'am, you can sit here and watch however many seasons of Sex in the City. What does that make you? Like, it's no different. He's sitting on his butt playing something that he enjoys, and you're
Yeah.
binge watching a show that you like. Like, it's similar to a certain extent.
Yeah, but
I don't think there's anything wrong with playing video games. Let him,
Yeah.
if he likes it, and especially when there's like a good balance of like real life stuff. If he's got good friendships, good relationships, a healthy connection with you, healthy relational things together with others. He's got a job. He's got his
Yeah.
crap figured out. Let him play the freaking video games. Like,
Yeah.
just let him. Sometimes you need to just like go downstairs and spend like 3 hours playing video games, if not maybe a little bit more. Like, just go do it. Like, that's your thing,
Yeah.
and that's fine. Like, I don't get it. It's not my thing. I find it completely, like, if I was to do it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is annoying. I don't get it. I'm frustrated. I give up. Like, but that's
Yeah.
not the case for everybody.
I think to equate laziness to like a specific thing, I'm like laziness or even like being toxic. I'm like, okay, I know just as many men who are considered toxic, fragile, that don't play video
That don't.
games, that
Yeah.
have other interests. Like those things are not the same.
No, they're
Like,
not. But that was just like my little video game
Yeah.
tangent. I'm like, I could give two craps about video games. It's not my thing.
Yeah.
But people, like women specifically, need to stop crapping all over it for guys.
Yeah.
Especially if dudes have their lives together.
Yeah.
Let them play their
Oh,
stupid games.
yeah,
Like,
it's-
that's their thing. Let it be
Yeah.
their thing. Just because it's
Yeah.
not your thing doesn't mean it can't be their thing.
Yeah, and I think that just is general to that. I just think that any couple that like either has to do everything together,
Yeah.
even if all your I was going to say, you should be able to be separate from your spouse. Your spouse should be able to go away for a weekend.
Yes.
Your spouse should be able to go away for a week without like you having to like have a panic.
Fall apart.
I saw this TikTok thing. There's a lady. They have kids, and she's just walking down the street. It's like girls' night, or she's gone, and she's like, he's calling me for everything, is what she's saying, and she's like,
That's weird.
She's like, he'll feed them dinner and be like, oh, I fed our kids this dinner. Oh, I just gave them a bath. Like he's like calling her to play by play everything that they're doing, and to me, I'm like, they should be able to like go away, and like we'll have conversations sometimes. Like if you're gone, like I'm like, I don't want to be a burden. I also want you to see
No.
that like we're having fun.
Yes,
And-
like we're having fun. There's nothing for you to worry about. Everything's well over here. I hope you're still having fun.
Yeah, and so
But-
for me, sometimes like the gauge is that I go, if I send her a text and she does not respond, I am not initiating the conversation until she is initiating.
Yeah.
it. And I
Because
do
you have that
for the
awareness
sole-
of knowing, like, she's busy, she's doing things.
And I do that for the sole purpose of, I can be present here with my own kids
Mm-hmm.
and with whatever's going on here, and give you this space because it's. I don't even know if it's about trust. I think it's just you're allowed to have fun.
Yeah.
I think trust is something that we obviously have developed.
Yeah.
But, like you don't build trust without somebody's ability to break it.
Yes, I don't need you to check in with me.
Yep.
Like to give me a play-by-play on things to make sure that I know that you're doing well, or like
Yep.
that everything's on track. Like we've been together long enough. Like
Yep.
I don't require that. I
No.
shouldn't require that.
No.
And you shouldn't feel like that's a
Yep.
need.
Yep.
And
there's people who might even say like, well, I trust you, but I don't trust other people.
Oh,
What are you talking about?
gosh,
Like
go to
that-
therapy, sir.
that-
Go to therapy, ma'am.
How insecure are
That's
you?
that's what it is.
You
It's like,
know?
also I think that's such a terrible excuse of like really bad behavior.
Yeah.
And really bad manipulation against another person.
that's the key
Like
word.
you can't go do this thing because it's not that I don't trust you, baby. I trust you so much. It's other people I don't trust.
Yeah.
Well, then you shouldn't be driving a car.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't go drive a car because you can't trust
Yeah.
anybody out there. They're gonna definitely
Everything
hit you.
out there is bad.
Like stop it.
Like-
That is like the worst form of manipulation,
Yep.
or I shouldn't say the worst, but it is
It's a form of
it's a
manipulation.
common terrible form of manipulation
And
towards
it's-
another
it's
person.
hidden under the guise of I just care so much about you.
So much. Like,
And
no,
I-
you don't. You are so
don't.
insecure and you lack control, and you're trying to make the
Yes.
other person accommodate for your feeling of lack.
Yep.
And that's not fair.
And it never is. And I think that's, to me, I'm like, all right, like, there should be a level of trust. Like, going away, I'm thinking, like, if there's a person who goes on a business trip for a month, like, you should be a really healthy person to be able to be gone for
Sure.
a long period of time.
Sure.
To be separated from your spouse, significant other, because that's just
Emphasis on should be.
should be.
I also think there are certain marriages and couples that like that is not something that would work for them.
No.
And that's, I think that to a certain extent is okay. I think there is a difference between just like having a girls' weekend or going
Yep.
away for a week solo.
Yep.
And as opposed to being like, well, I have a job that requires me to be away for months.
Yeah.
It's like, I do think that like that can be very tolling on marriage.
Yep.
Some marriages and some people are like,
Yeah.
heck yeah, this
Yeah,
we're
it
made
works.
for this. I know, which I could never do this, but like I've met people before. They're like, oh yeah, my husband works in Chicago. He's got a condo down there. I live up here. We meet on the weekends. Like
Yep.
that for me would not work.
Yep, it wouldn't work for me either.
My love language is quality time. I think I would feel a lot of lack, but again, that's my
Yep.
thing that I would
And
need to
that's
work
something
through.
that you as a couple
Would have
you
to navigate.
You figure that stuff out, and you
Yes.
figure that stuff out early, because if you're a year in and that person, you can't change that thing with
No.
in person. It's sad when people want to change distance. It's really sad when people want to change. Even the want for kids. Not everybody needs to have kids.
No, not everybody wants them.
But I
That's
think
okay.
that sometimes, like, what I've seen is like there's a person who's really unsure, does not want kids, and then you have somebody else who's like begging, who's trying to convince the other person to have children, and I think that it's not
Hold
good
on,
for
baby.
the relationship for them to have that constant battle.
Yeah.
Because that person should maybe find another like significant other that maybe does not want to have children. They don't hate
Maybe.
kids, but they're
Yeah,
like,
maybe
"It's
just
not
like
for us."
finding, being with somebody who is more
Yeah.
aligned with the big things in life.
Yep.
You will never find somebody who agrees with every single tiny thing that you agree with, but like it is huge to be aligned with the big things.
Yeah.
That will make a huge difference in the later years of
Because
your
that's
relationship.
where you had said it kind of in the beginning of you should not set out to be in a relationship to change another person. That
No.
them changing is just going to be a byproduct of being in the relationship with
Sure.
them.
And
But
also
they're
just a
big
byproduct of being a
terms.
human.
Yeah.
Like, even if I was single from the age of 20 to 50,
Yep.
50-year-old me and 20-year-old me are going to be real different.
Yep.
And it's not because anybody else changed me,
Yeah.
it's just because I'm a human and I evolve.
Yep. And if at one point you didn't want kids and then at another point you do, that's
You're allowed to change your mind.
That's up to you. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to become a different person.
Yeah.
That's totally fine. What I think in a relationship that works is, hey, both of you, dogs, is that you need
No,
to
you
be
relax.
separate and growing on your own, have your own interests, read your own books, like your own shows, whatever those things are. But if you're to be with another person, and you both are going to have to develop together and separately, because then together, from your own personal relationship with Jesus, from having your own friendships, from having your own interests, I think you come to the table in a relationship wholer, like
Ma'am.
when I say wholer, like you're a whole individual, you're a more healthy, well-rounded individual, and then some of the stuff that is going to need to be chipped away, that other person is going to irritate you enough
Sure.
to, kind of drag those things out, or hey, why do you do this? Like they're able to ask you those questions, but you have more to bring and more to offer because you actually have something to give, as opposed to like the relationship that we're describing in the beginning of I cannot be separated when we're having conflict. We have to fight for hours and hours and hours in order to get anywhere in this relationship, or for you to prove that you're committed to this relationship.
Sure.
Just feels like the relationship has to have their own individual. These dogs are distracting me.
I'm kind of over.
Yeah.
I'm getting tired.
Yeah. Hour and 13.
All I have to say, be your own person.
Yeah.
Go to therapy.
And don't have 4 dogs in your house.
Don't have 4 dogs at the same time in a house.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could if you're not podcasting. That's fine too.
Yeah, to me.
I think we hit our main points.
Yeah.
This is a nice conversation. I think at the end of the day, that's all that this really needs to be. It's just like a good conversation, good connecting point, nice thing to share that I'm sure a million other people are talking about and thinking about together and individually. So,
Like and subscribe.
or don't. Just kidding.
Don't.
I'm just joking. That was a joke. Like and subscribe, comment. Something fell on my shirt. Oh, my earring.
Share. Got a French fry down there?
No, it's an earring.
Yeah. I think that's God's way of saying, hey, be here.
Sorry. Love you.